Today we're talking about the two new gods who will make it into SMITE relatively soon. One being Artio and the other one being Hachiman. Apologies if I end up butchering those names. I tried to look up how to pronounce them, but it's really hard to find out. Artio will actually make it into SMITE relatively soon, as she's expected to be released in patch 4.13, whereas we can expect Hachiman to be released in patch 4.15. The reason I didn't make a video on Artio earlier is because there wasn't much info around, and there still really isn't. Whereas for Hachiman, we actually have a ridiculous amount of information given how far his release is still away and how much closer Artio's release is, hence the video at this point. We'll first talk about Artio and her kit and then move over to Hachiman. Artio is the next Celtic deity to make it into SMITE. She is a bear goddess, and in most depictions of her, she is depicted along with her bear, sometimes wearing a bear fur on her head or something like that. However, from what we can tell for her SMITE release, she will probably have a full-on stance swap into a bear, giving her some different abilities. The general information that we have on her is that she has two stances, one being the druid stance, the other one being the bear stance, and that this is either attached to her ultimate or none of her abilities at all and works somehow differently. Think, for example, Cuchulainn. She also seems to be more geared towards the frontliner side, simply due to the fact that she has damage mitigation. This means that it's very likely she will be a Guardian, simply due to the fact that Cuchulainn is a Celtic warrior that was literally just released. So, what we can expect is a stance-changing Guardian. The abilities are a little bit hard to separate due to the fact that we don't know which ability belongs to Artio's druid stance and which belongs to her bear stance, so we'll just go through them and mention what they are without saying how many abilities she actually has or how exactly it works. The first ability we have is Roar. This ability gives you some sort of damage mitigation and deals damage. It says makes damage, so we can only assume it's probably deals damage. And it also somehow works with passive stacks alongside with it, though we don't know anything about the passive. About her next skill, we only know that it's a ground zone and that it's a deployable, so maybe this is actually her Roar as well. Her second skill is some sort of charge, towards the enemy obviously. And her third skill is Life Tap. Now, Life Tap in other games is often something where you kind of drain your own health and then get mana in return or something along those lines. I'm not quite sure if that applies here, simply because it has something attached to it which says Druid Life Tap Projectile. If it was something that, well, deals damage to yourself, then it wouldn't really need any sort of projectile to it, so maybe it's some sort of life drain from the enemy. Pretty unclear what this could be. And then the fourth ability is Maul or Stance Change. It's not unlikely that she actually has her ultimate as the stance change. Then it would work out in such a way that we already know 5 of the skills, including the Roar being its own individual skill and Maul being its own individual skill, and we would only be missing one extra ability that is yet to be found out, or one ability that doesn't change with the stance change. So all in all, not that much information unfortunately, but this should still give you a decent overview of what direction the character will be going in. For Hachiman, things are very different. We have a lot of information on him, and we can already make some assumptions based on those information that are pretty much 99% likely to be correct in the end. Hachiman has a few different definitions regarding his title. He is obviously a Japanese deity, he's from the Shinto pantheon, but he is on one hand often called the god of war, when more specifically he's probably more of the protector god of the warriors. He is also known as the god of archery, so he's an archer. He's also known for being mounted on a horse, and that does play into his kit as well. So being an archer and knowing that he has physical damage, which we already have confirmed, it is very likely that he will be a hunter, because we didn't have a hunter in a while either, and we had an assassin and a warrior recently, and that in combination with the bow is just very obviously pointing in one direction there. His basic attack damage is 35 damage base plus 2.35 per level, and obviously scales with 100% of your physical power. In addition to that, his passive gives him bonus physical power for each nearby god, meaning he's probably at least to some degree designed for trading other gods, because that will obviously give him the bonus power, or playing along with his allies. His first skill is a toggle skill that seems to change his basic attacks in some way, pretty much like we already know that from Ram or Izanami. It consumes mana, so it seems to work a little closer to Ram's one than either Nami's one, where you only use mana once, so it's probably something that has multiple charges and can be used up. You can also cancel the ability through the right mouse. His second skill is called Reaction. It's some sort of special hit on the target that gives you a damage buff against it, most likely, and it can also apparently be cancelled, though I'm not quite sure how that's gonna work. His third skill is a knock-up and a roll, but it's not explained how exactly that works, so it could be like Apollo where the escape happens first, or it could be something else, maybe a knock-up that goes into a roll afterwards. For this ability, we actually know that it has a 10-second cooldown, which is very short for a Hunter escape. It only costs 20 mana as well, so it's really cheap, so it seems to be something you'll be using quite often. Maybe the roll is very short, or it's not actually an escape after all. His ultimate, or fourth skill, is Horse Charge. During this, he apparently moves with twice the normal speed, and he is able to shoot, as it seems, during this charge. The charge ends with an explosion, so I don't know what exactly will happen there if the horse drops something, or maybe the horse explodes. Probably rather unlikely. The ultimate sounds a bit like a combination of Guan Yu's ult and Chiron's dash, but we'll see in the end how it turns out. That's it for these two new gods. The data mining website is linked down below. Thanks for allowing me to use the information. I'm personally very excited to see these new gods, especially Artio. I really want to see how this stance swap on a Guardian works out and if it's very different from Fafnir, for example, even though we don't know that much about her kit yet. With that, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope this was informative. I apologize for being absent for a few days. I was actually just sick. Sorry about that. I'm back now and we should be back on the regular schedule. If you enjoyed this and you're not a sub yet, feel free to click that sub button and maybe the bell. It really helps me out. And yo, maybe click that like button as well. That would be really cool. See you for the next one tomorrow. Duke Sloth, out.